you've also taken over the role of the Speaker. I can assure you the Honorable Millie Grace Odhiambo, MP for Suba North, should have the mic to make her contributions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support this bill and thank the committee for bringing it, or the leader of majority. And I also want to indicate at the onset that it's a good thing that now we are having a legislative framework on disaster risk management. Indeed, I'm actually glad that it's clarified, because I remember very clearly we had this bill in the last parliament, but I do notice that it had lapsed. Mr. Speaker, because most people have spoken a lot to the issue of disaster risk management, I just wanted to talk about some of the issues that I've seen that are thorny in the bill. One of them, which I was actually intervening because I didn't know that I would have the time, is on the issue of definition of disaster, that because they have included the word local, it actually limits, because then a disaster can happen that is beyond local. But when you use the word local, it means it limits how we respond when you actually make disaster a local affair. And we have seen from experience, and even from what the majority leader had given, for example, of COVID. Do you classify COVID as a local issue, or is it a national issue? Then, Mr. Speaker, one of the other issues that I've actually picked that is of concern for me also is the definition of disaster risk management. And I'm encouraging the committee, even though I've proposed amendments already, that they should expand it to include having in place a permanent structure of disaster risk management at the county and national level, identifying and mapping disaster-prone or vulnerable areas, situations, or people as part of management, because we already know as a country which areas are very prone to flooding, for instance, but we always operate like it's a shock when it happens. And then issuing early warning of imminent disaster. Mr. Speaker, if you go even to BBC and other areas now, you actually see alerts that are issued all the time. And even if you look at today's nation, I think media, I don't know if it was Nation or what, that I was reading, the US is already giving an alert on a possible terrorist attack in Somalia. That is actually a preparation for disaster. Why don't we have things like that? And then relocating populations in case of imminent disasters, and using technology to better management disaster. Mr. Speaker, one time when we were in Indonesia with the Committee of Budget, I woke up in the night, I was sleeping, and I actually thought I'd overslept and forgotten to switch off my TV. And Mr. Speaker, after a while, I actually discovered that it was an automated system coming through the TV that was warning us that there has just been an earthquake of this magnitude, and we should go out and we should do XYZ, you know, for a focal point. And Mr. Speaker, by the time I was walking down, I think God gave me an amazing ability to sleep. I met people walking up. I had slept through the earthquake. And when I reached, I found people that were in centralized places. Should we have an earthquake in Kenya, I can tell you it will be shocking how we'd react, because we don't have those centralized places. In Indonesia, everybody knows there's an earthquake. Every hotel has a centralized area. We should also have those automated systems even in our hotels, not just for earthquakes, but for other things. I'd want to say, for instance, my own county, Homa Bay, is an earthquake-prone area, but we have such things. I know Honorable Gladys will be doing something about it. She's just done her first year. But in terms of the law, those are the things that we need to be putting. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that is of concern to me is the issue of the definition again of emergency preparedness. And I'm encouraging the committee that what we need to add as part of emergency preparedness is having a policy in place for both the national and the county government, but also having in place a monitoring system for both the county and national government, having in place an early warning system, a continuous public education and awareness of to the public on disaster risk response, including emergency numbers and centers, and having in place facilities and equipment for effective and quick response in case of disasters, including fire trucks, land, water, and air ambulatory services. Mr. Speaker, right now, if we were to have a disaster in Fangano Island, would actually have a challenge because we don't have a boat ambulatory system. I know we've raised it with our governor and she said she will bring it, but I'm not just saying it in relation to Homa Bay County. What about other areas that are, covered by water? If there's an emergency or a disaster, how do you respond quickly? And because now the systems that we have there are mainly private. And even for us to mobilize them, you might find the ferry is in Kisumu or wherever, and they are slow. If you are dealing with disasters, you need quick response. So for me, those are some of the issues that I'd want. Again, in clause 4, one of the guiding principles should be protecting vulnerable groups, including women, children, persons with disabilities, and the elderly in cases of disasters. Because we have not mentioned them specifically, but disaster affects different groups differently. When you have women and children, when you have disasters, women will be prone to sexual abuse and all other kind of issues. How do we respond to women in disasters like that, where they do no longer have any habitation and whatever? What about menstrual and gene and things like that when you have disasters? And then I'm also suggesting that we need to have the Minister for Gender because of that issue in the management authority. I know we are also trying to make it smaller, but even as we make it smaller, we need to have the Minister for Gender, who mercifully a lot of times also doubles up as the one in charge of the young person. But I know that now it's not the same, but it would be important. And then, Chair, on the issue of governance, it's an issue that I've been speaking to a lot on this floor, but I will re-emphasize it. Chair, we have this tendency that you find one Kenyan in 2 boards, or in serving a government office, but also in a board. When there are many Kenyans who don't have anything, why don't they also serve in those boards? Or we have one person that have exceptional intellectual capacities. Those are things that we also must address. We must also, in terms of governance, one of the other issues that we must also look at is the way we phrase the powers that we give the chair of the board. And one of the powers that we need to give the board is not to dismiss somebody for absenting themselves, but without justification. Chair, one of the other things that I'd want to say is also that we need to ensure that we take a zebra approach when we are appointing the boards or the officers to any of the bodies. And so that if you have a male chair, you should have a female vice and vice versa. Mr. Speaker, I've written a few of the issues. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I just want to complete by saying one of the things that I've told you before, I've sponsored the Victim Protection Act. And one of the clauses in the Victim Protection Act is the issue of victimization, mass victimization arising from a crime. So for instance, the issue of terrorism. And one of the things it does, it says that, this is actually born of the fact that when we have seen all the times that we have seen terrorist attacks, how have we responded as a country? Every single person has walked in there to respond, not the officers. Secondly, in their response, we don't preserve the evidence. We don't also look at the victim. We don't see like what you see if you actually look at a lot of the programs in the US or other areas, that they will preserve the dress that the person is wearing for purposes of identification or any other identifying features. I was very shocked one time when I went to Kenyatta National Hospital, and I saw recently that they wanted to dispose of bodies. And they were telling people to just come and dispose of bodies. And I asked them, do you keep in such cases of disposals any evidence that when somebody one time wants to identify a person who is lost, they can do that? And they said, no, they don't have. I was actually shocked. So that is why, for instance, one of the people who used to be an ODM member called Matunga, who disappeared from Gwasi, to date can't be traced because there is no DNA evidence. This applies to mass victimization as well. So, Mr. Speaker, I've proposed several amendments to this bill. It is a good bill. It is a timely bill. I encourage the majority speaker to be more futuristic and stop looking backwards and always blaming other people, including Honorable Matiang'I, because the country has moved on. With those few remarks, I support.
Thank you, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Always very informative. The Honorable Dr. Suzanne Kiamba, the MP for Makueni.
While I think it is in order to have a disaster management authority, I wish to raise some few concerns. And one of the concerns I wish to raise is the fact that in this country, we are working very hard to create very many structures. We've made so many structures that ends up having no budget or money to do what we wish them to do. I want to give an example when we come to issues of water and issues water. You'll find it at Nahadi, you'll find the Tana, you'll find quite a number of Walma, and you'll find like around 3 or so structures. But when you look at the budget to deliver what is supposed to be delivered, Honorable Speaker, we tend to find it quite wanting. So I'm of the opinion, like we have a ministry under which disaster risk management is there, is under that particular ministry. And you realize that the institutional capacity within the ministry is very weak. My concern is, why should we continue making more structures while we have institutionalized structures that don't have capacity? The moment we create a structure, Honorable Speaker, we attract a budget. We are living at times in this country when money is very scarce. So when I sit down and listen to this bill, I'm seeing a new budget coming up. And I'm wondering, Honorable Speaker, when we continue creating these many budgets of overheads, when will we have money for the outcomes which we want to deliver in this particular country? I also find it very interesting, Honorable Speaker, when we look at the fact that disaster is something that happens once in a while, not every day. But the moment you create an authority, you have to have a budget that has to be taken care every month. In my view, disaster should be mainstreamed because we have health-related disasters, we have water-related disasters, we have food security-related disasters. In my view, an authority is too much an overhead. We need every department to mainstream the risk management and disaster. And by that way, we reduce the cost of running these disasters right from the national level up to the county level. Otherwise, we'll have so many structures and no money to deliver the kind of outcomes we want to our own people. So, Honorable Speaker, of course you can see I really do not agree with this motion of having more structures. As a Kenyan representative, I'm interested in delivering outcomes to our people. Even look at even our own leadership structure. A Kenyan at the grassroots there is represented by a president, a deputy president, a senator, a woman rep, a governor, a member of parliament, an MCA. I've not mentioned the chief and his assistant. What reaches that voter at the ground under all that particular process? I'm feeling even when we go to service delivery, we are going still to the same, let me not call it mess, to the same kind of thinking where we create so much structure that when it comes to service delivery, we spend most of the income without bringing the change we want. Honorable Speaker, I am opposing this motion because in my view, I think risk management is not something that happens every day and should not have somebody sitting 365 days to wait when disaster comes. But people in every sector, people in every ministry, we should strengthen the disaster component. And by so doing, we can deliver seamless outcomes to our people when disaster emerges. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I stand to oppose that creation of a structure. I wish it could be integrated in already existing structures that we have and we deliver the service. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Suzanne Kiamba is saying when Parliament is struck now, you should not have some authority sitting somewhere still deciding whether there should be response. We should build in disaster response within systems so that there is no need for authority. I hear her to be saying that. And Honorable Martin Owino, of course, says that we should classify disaster, those ones which the counties need to respond to, those ones the national government, instead of waiting for a disaster to sit down and then plan. Everybody would be dead by then. The mover should now reply. Honorable Dr. Undo, I see you, but I remember I gave you opportunity to address the nation on this particular one. Yes, sir. So mover.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to, on behalf of the Leader of Majority, the Honorable Kimani Chungwa, the member for Kikuyu, I want to take this opportunity to reply. Now, Honorable Speaker, first of all, I want to thank all the honorable members who got an opportunity to contribute. And I want to, Honorable Speaker, say that we have taken their concerns, we have taken their contributions, and we are going to critically look at them and see how we are going to incorporate what honorable members have raised while debating this bill in the next stage. So, Honorable Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the members of the Regional Development Committee for doing a good job. But, Honorable Speaker, equally, I want to say that, of course, wherever they are, they have also seen the concerns of honorable members, having gone through the report, having gone through the bill, and they have also made proposals. Honorable Speaker, I think I have seen members talk about the definitions that we need to recheck. I've also heard that from you, the Honorable Speaker, we have to relook at Clause 33. And many other proposals that members have given. As a committee, we also proposed amendments to this bill, which of course we're going to bring in the next stage of this bill. So, Honorable Speaker, together with what honorable members have proposed, we are going to look at it again, and then come back here and we agree as a House on how we are going to move forward. However, Honorable Speaker, you have seen that the majority of members have supported this bill. And from their contributions, this bill would not have come at a better time than now. So I want to sincerely commend them and thank them for their support. And of course, whatever they have again raised as a way of we need to relook at, I think is welcomed. Now, Honorable Speaker, disasters have been managed from various quarters in this country. Like, for example, when we had a landslide in the West Pokot the other time, that was my constituency, Sigor, part of Pokot South, and some other regions of this country. Responding was by the Kenya Defense Forces, mainly. And in certain instances, it was even very difficult for agencies and even well-wishers to access the areas that had landslides. So it was really very, very difficult. And I think now, by coming out with this bill, which, Honorable Speaker, now seems to provide a legal framework so that we have coordination of disaster risk management, because as it is now, it is done through the KDF. There is a disaster operations center at the Ministry of Interior. We have agencies like the Red Cross and others. So it's important that we have a framework, a legal framework, so that all these actors involved in disaster risk management and disaster risk management get coordinated and even take stock of even the actors in disaster risk management. So we have even proposed in this bill that we are going to have a register of all the actors and players who are going to do something about disaster. Honorable Speaker, the fourth schedule to the Constitution provides that disaster management is a shared function between the two levels of government in this country. That is the national government and the county government. That is why, Honorable Speaker, we have here proposed a National Disaster Risk Management Authority, and at the county, we have a disaster, county disaster committee that will be headed by somebody who will be competitively recruited. And in that way, I think we are going to have a situation where the two levels of government coordinate and work together to address cases of disaster. Honorable Speaker, you know, the people in the counties are Kenyans. So we don't have people of the national government and people of county government. So whenever a disaster occurs, it affects Kenyans. And if this bill is going to help in terms of reaction time between the time a disaster occurs and the time it is being addressed, then I think this is good. Now, Honorable Speaker, I know that the various issues that have been put forward will be taken into consideration. Now, Honorable Speaker, when this bill will be enacted into law, the enactment of this bill, Honorable Speaker, will lead to efficient and effective management of disasters across the country. During contribution here, that it may be too bureaucratic between the time a disaster occurs and the time it is being classified. But I want to say that probably that time, the reaction time between when a disaster occurs and when it is being addressed, it can be a very short time, because we have also classified disasters into a county disaster and maybe a national disaster. Where a disaster affects more than one county, we can call it a national disaster. And when it is affecting one county, then it can be a county disaster. But in instances where, even when it is affecting one county and the county is unable to manage it, then again, we call it a national disaster. So, Honorable Speaker, we have also said that the President can declare a state of disaster. So, and I think when the President also comes in, and when the magnitude of a disaster gets to certain levels, then the President can declare a state of national disaster. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, with all the inputs by honorable members and what we have also proposed as a committee for amendments, I think this bill will go a long way to ensuring that whenever disasters strike, or whenever we have instances or cases of disaster, then I think there is a coordinated way of responding to disasters in this country, and probably even in a timely manner. So, Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I sincerely thank honorable members who contributed, and I therefore beg to reply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Mover, for the convenience of the House, the question on second reading of this bill will be put the next time it will be scheduled for consideration by the House Business Committee. The Honorable, next order.
Order number 13, motion, reports of the Auditor General on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 5 constituencies in Vihiga County.
Mover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the second report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its examination of audited financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for five constituencies in Vihiga for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 14th February 2024. Honorable Speaker, the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee is a select committee established pursuant to the National Assembly Standing Orders 205B and is responsible for the examination of the reports of Auditor General on the accounts of, among others, the National Government Constituencies Development Fund and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Honorable Speaker, the National Government Constituency Development Fund has had significant impacts on our communities and on individuals' lives since its establishment in 2003. Honorable members can attest that the fund has helped transform our communities through the development and maintenance of infrastructure projects, especially in schools and other educational facilities, as well as provision of bursaries to needy students. These CDF-funded projects have stimulated economic activity in the constituencies by providing employment opportunities during construction and enhancing local infrastructure that supports businesses, leading to increased economic growth and prosperity. Improved access to education, on the other hand, has translated to communities being more empowered and leading better lives. It is indeed an economic stimulus program which should be cascaded to other development projects. Honorable Speaker, one important aspect of the NG-CDF projects has been the participatory nature of the projects that it funds. The NG-CDF often involves community participation in project selection, implementation, and monitoring. This has empowered communities to take charge of their development priorities and foster a sense of ownership over the projects, leading to sustainable development outcomes, unlike other development projects. Honorable Speaker, oversight over national revenue and expenditure is amongst the roles of the National Assembly as stipulated under Section 95(4)(c) of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Further, Article 226 of the Constitution provides that an Act of Parliament shall provide for the designation of an accounting officer in every public entity at the national level who is accountable to the National Assembly for its financial management. In addition, Article 229(8) mandates this House to debate and take appropriate action on audit reports from the Auditor General. Further, Section 68(1) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 provides in the earlier that an accounting officer of the national government entity, Parliamentary Service Commission, and the judiciary shall be accountable to the National Assembly to ensure that the resources of the respective entity for which he or she is accountable, accounting officer, are used in a way that is lawful and authorized and effective, efficient, economical, and transparent. In addition, Section 12(3) of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Act, number 30 of 2015, provides that the fund account manager shall hold the authority to incur expenditure of the funds at the constituency. The fund account managers were therefore invited to respond to concerns raised by the committee in their capacity as AIE orders. Honorable Speaker, it is in line with these constitutional and legal provisions that the committee invited the fund account managers, both current and former, as accounting officers of the NG-CDF to respond to audit queries raised by the Auditor General during their tenure. The committee also invited the board of NG-CDF to respond to policy issues which were also subjected to audit queries. Information received formed the basis for the various recommendations outlined in this report, which are geared towards effective management of the fund. Honorable Speaker, the committee, while examining the audited accounts for Vihiga, Sambatia, Amisi, Emuhaya, and the Luanda constituencies in Vihiga County, the committee observed that in the financial year 2013-2014, all the constituencies examined had audit issues raised following the High Court of Kenya ruling on petition number 71 of 2013, which held that Constituency Development Fund 2013 establishing the Constituency Development Fund since an enactment of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was unconstitutional. The committee further observed that the issue was overtaken by events as it was addressed through the passing of the NG-CDF Act 2015 and its regulations 2016, which aligned the fund functions to national government functions. The functions were further aligned by the enactment of the NG-CDF Act 2023, recently passed by this Honorable House. Honorable Speaker, the committee also observed in all the constituencies, the Auditor General had raised issues on under expenditure or non-implementation of projects due to late receipt of funds in the constituencies. The committee observed that this was beyond the capacity of the fund account managers and recommended that the National Treasury should ensure timely and adequate disbursement of funds to the National Government Constituencies and Development Fund Board for immediate release to the constituencies. Honorable Speaker, the committee also observed that in all the constituencies examined, documents were filed late for verification during the audit period and recommended that the accounting officers should ensure that fund account managers comply with the provisions of Section 62(1)(b) and (c) of the Public Audit Act, number 34 of 2015, which provides that a person shall not, without justification, fail to provide information required under this Act, and without justification fail to provide information within reasonable time that is required under this Act. Honorable Speaker, the committee also made some general observations and recommendations on issues which cut across 5 constituencies in Vihiga County as follows. Firstly, Honorable Speaker, in the regard to reallocation and use of emergency funds, the committee observed that some of the projects funded using emergency funds did not meet the threshold of the Section 6(2) and Section 8 of the NG-CDF Act 2015. The committee recommended that the NG-CDF Constituency Development Fund Board should ensure that the fund account managers comply with the provisions of Section 6(2) and Section 8 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act 2015, which provides that Section 6(2), once funds are allocated for a particular project, they shall remain allocated for that project and may only be reallocated for any other purpose during the financial year with the approval of the board. And number 2, Section 8(1), a portion of the fund equivalent to 5% hereinafter referred to as emergency reserve shall remain unallocated and shall be available for emergencies that may occur within the constituency. The constituency committee shall determine the allocation of the emergency reserve in accordance with the Act. And number 3, emergency shall be construed to mean an urgent and foreseen need for expenditure for which it is in the opinion of the committee that it cannot be delayed until the next financial year without harming the public interest of the constituents. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, in respect of pending ongoing projects, the committee observed that the critical cause of pending ongoing projects being common in the constituencies was partial allocation of funds for projects. The committee therefore recommends that the NG-CDF board should, with immediate effect, discourage the partial allocation of funds to projects and ensure that projects are completed at most within 2 financial years. Further, NG-CDF committee should ensure proper costing of the projects is done through consultation with the relevant government and departments to ensure realistic cost estimates. And the NG-CDF board should come up with a realistic policy framework of costing projects for each constituency by the end of the first quarter of the financial year 2023-24, which is informed by the cost of materials, cost of transportation, taxes, inflation index, and the topography of each constituency. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, the committee observed that there was poor coordination between the Office of the Auditor General and the fund account managers, particularly regarding to the timely response to audit queries. The committee further observed that there is need for NG-CDF board to inform fund account managers across the country to respond to audit queries promptly. The committee, the NG-CDF board, the committee recommended the NG-CDF board issues an administrative circular directing fund account managers to comply with the provisions of the Constitution 2010, the Public Audit Act number 34, 2015, the Public Finance Management Act number 18 of 2012, and Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act number 33 of 2015. 3, the board to ensure the fund account managers maintain the original project management files at the CDF office, while the duplicates are maintained at the project committees at the project sites to ensure that documents are available at the time of audit. 3, the board should ensure constituency committees employ qualified accountants for the constituency offices beginning 23-24 within the 6% administrative allocation to the board. This will strengthen the maintenance of books of accounts and preparation of financial statements. Fourthly and lastly, Honorable Speaker, on the accuracy of financial statements, the committee observed that fund account managers experience challenges in adopting to international public sector accounting standards, IPSAS, reporting framework in preparation of financial statements. The standards were introduced in 2013-14 financial year in the public sector, and the failure to comply with the standards in subsequent years occasioned qualification of financial statements. The committee also established that Public Sector Accounting Standards Board reviews the IPSAS standards periodically to take into account emerging issues and conform to best accounting practices. Some fund account managers experience challenges in application of these standards while preparing financial statements as envisaged in the audit queries. The committee recommends that 1, fund account managers comply with the IPSAS framework in preparation of financial statements. 2, the board, in consultation with the Public Accounting Standards Board, conducts continuous capacity building on financial reporting standards for constituency staff. 3, the board, in consultation with the Public Procurement Authority, should conduct continuous capacity building to all fund account managers on procurement laws and regulations within 3 months of the tabling of this report. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, allow me to mention that while examining these reports, the committee did not find anything adverse or alarming, and observations and recommendations of the committee show there is nothing to worry about in the implementation of CDF projects. I therefore sincerely congratulate the respective members of parliament in these constituencies for the good work they are doing in the constituencies, and thank the fund account managers, both current and former, for their cooperation when called upon to appear to give evidence to the committee on the audited accounts. I also wish to acknowledge the CEO of the board for the technical support they gave the committee during the examination and guidance provided to the constituencies on the policy matters, which have streamlined the reporting of the accounts of the constituencies. Honorable Speaker, I also take this opportunity to appreciate my fellow committee members for their commitment to the work before us and the sitting for long hours to examine the reports before the committee and come up with this report. I also wish to thank the office of the Speaker and the Clerk for the support given to the committee. May I also extend the committee appreciation to the Office of the Auditor General, the National Treasury, and Committee Secretariat for the good work they have put in facilitating committee and providing the technical support which enabled the committee to finalize the report. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move. Thank you.
Who is seconding your motion?
May I request the Honorable Muthoni Kiara to second?
Honorable Muthoni Kiara should have the mic to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to second the motion that this House adopts the second report of the Decentralized Funds Account Committee on its examination of the audited financial statement for the National Government Constituency Development Fund for the 5 constituencies in Vihiga County. Honorable Speaker, I do wish to appreciate that the National Government Constituency Development Fund is one of the funds that is felt on the ground, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issues that are normally raised when we call or when we go for audit, Honorable Speaker, it's important to know that they cut across all the constituencies. And during the examination of these financial statements, Honorable Speaker, we do realize that in all the constituencies, the issues that we come across normally are the same. And Honorable Speaker, we have taken time in more often than not to scrutinize all the reports that are brought by the fund account managers. But Honorable Speaker, the committee's general observation, as cited by the mover, therefore, is these constituencies in Vihiga, for instance, on the issue of unimplemented projects, the committee observed that there was delay in implementing massive delay in implementation of the projects, and the reason given is treasury, Honorable Speaker, because of delay in disbursement of the same projects, of the same monies. Honorable Speaker, the committee recommended that the National Treasury should ensure timely and adequate disbursement of funds to the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board for immediate release to the constituencies to avert these massive delays. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to reiterate that the committee's observation on poor coordination between the Office of the Auditor General and the fund account managers, particularly regarding the timely response to audit queries, and the need for the National Government Constituency Development Board to inform the fund account managers across the county to respond to audited queries promptly. Honorable Speaker, the committee recommends, amongst others, that the National Government Constituency Development Board should ensure constituency committees employ qualified accountants for the constituency office. And Honorable Speaker, we also observed that these account fund managers, sometimes proper induction is not done because, Honorable Speaker, you find they don't know even what to bring during audit. And this makes the committee keeps calling them again and again. To repeat this, Honorable Speaker, we want to urge the National Government Constituency Fund Board to ensure that they do proper induction to all the fund managers to avert wastage of public resources, calling the committee, and wastage of time for the committee members, because we normally sit long hours, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to come out with very credible report. Honorable Speaker, I wish to join my chairman in saying that in all the constituencies, money has been used prudently. And Honorable Speaker, it is important for all of us to laud the members of Parliament because their work is oversight. And Honorable Speaker, it is important also to note that the only fund that we can properly account for and see in terms of development is the funds utilized and the funds that come from the national government constituency. So, Honorable Speaker, I'm saying this because the counties are also in place, but whenever we go the buildings that we see, Honorable Speaker, we can see clearly they are national government constituency development fund projects that have been properly utilized, and some are in proper use, Honorable Speaker, except for the few issues that we have raised where there is massive delay in disbursement of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. And on that note, Honorable Speaker, as a committee, I wish to urge the NG-CDF board, chaired by the honorable members in this house, so that they urge Treasury to release these funds well on time, so that we don't have massive delays of projects. Honorable Speaker, I wish to second this very important report and say NG-CDF is the way to go. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its consideration of the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 5 constituencies in Vihiga County for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 14th February 2024. The Honorable Dr. Wilberforce Oundo, MP for Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to commend the Committee of Decentralized Funds for the wonderful job they have been doing. And Honorable Speaker, allow me as well to sympathize with them. And I hope they listen so they can receive my sincere sympathy, because trying to audit books of account of 2014, 2015, and those kind of dates, Honorable Speaker, is a Herculean task, and they must have Solomonic wisdom to how they unraveled this matter. Honorable Speaker, and it's also interesting and really commendable, because naturally the standard practice that after 7 years, accounting documents are destroyed or they're declared redundant. How they have managed to review the financial books of account for 2013, and indeed I must commend an architect can always redraw, even destroy the house, and the chair is an architect, I know, and having been a PS, probably has learned the art of exorcising all the ghosts. Honorable Speaker, I must also admit that quite a number of fund managers who attended this meeting to discuss the audited accounts, quite many of them had not even joined the board when these funds were being expended. So indeed, they grappled in the dark, but it's good to see the caliber of what they are. They were able to adequately answer the records, answer all the questions based on the records available. Honorable Speaker, Article 95-96 bestowed the National Assembly the mandate to oversight government funds. And indeed, this is what members of parliament do here in the National Assembly and also in Mashinani in respect of the CDF funds. And I want to reiterate very clearly, for avoidance of doubts, that members of parliament are not members of the CDFC committees at the constituency level. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, with the change in the law, even where members of parliament by any accident used to sit in the oversight committee, that has long been reversed. So essentially, the CDF fund as it is a completely independent fund, run by its own structures. The members of parliament only oversight. Just like we can oversight any national government project, we can attend the launch of any national government project, when they're being launched, be it by the minister, be it by the PS, be it even by the president, or whoever attends. So our attendance in such launches, such handover, is just part of our representation and of our oversight role. Honorable Speaker, when we seek to find out what has been done, we are simply oversighting. We are not involved directly in the management of the funds. When the reports are brought here, Honorable Speaker, we indeed also have just oversight, like everybody else can do anywhere. So I want the members of the press, the Republic, and everybody to desist at any time associating a member of parliament with any misappropriation, any corruption, or unethical management of any funds at any given time. The AIE holder, as the chair has clearly explained, is the fund accounts manager. That's the AIE holder at the constituency level. At the board level, it's the CEO. So if there is any issue, indeed the people to answer those questions are the AIE holders who are the fund managers. But fund managers also work within the local context. So it's always important, the Office of the Auditor General and all those who are involved in any form of oversight or auditing must put in mind that this is a local environment, local circumstances. Honorable Speaker, when you go to the procurement processes, Honorable Speaker, you would go to some remote constituencies. You might not be able to get all the contractors who have got all the required documentation at any given time. You impose certain types of plant and machinery, you expect some kind of personnel, which will never be found. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, if we were to follow strictly the Public Procurement Asset Disposal Act, then most of the tenders for CDF jobs, the small ones, will be literally non-responsive, and they would therefore the funds not to be spent and be no value for money. That's why we always urge the auditors, yes, this is what the law says, but the law is progressive. The law is not stuck at one point or another. Even when you look at the provisions about interpretation of the Constitution, they tell you this alive document must be interpreted as a living document, not as a dead horse which you flog and doesn't respond. So we want to urge that it's not only this particular fund. There are some even funds like equalization fund that are taken to do work, execute work in very remote places. Let the Office of the Auditor General be realistic, be reasonable, and be alive to the fact that there are local circumstances that dictate a different approach to a strictly procurement process that we could undertake here in Nairobi or elsewhere. The same way, Honorable Speaker, even if it comes to the building bylaws, there are adoptive building bylaws, and there are adoptive building bylaws depending on the local circumstances. Some of the building material that we wish to use in Nairobi cannot be applicable in some places because of the adverse environmental and weather conditions. So these are kind of debate that we need to put into place so that we should not just operate in a straitjacket as if we are robots, unable to think beyond a reasonable level. Honorable Speaker, since CDF came into this country, and I stand to be corrected, and even if we did an opinion poll, everybody will always, every Kenyan, wherever they are, they will always flag out a CDF as the most impactful devolved fund in this country. Honorable Speaker, go anywhere in this country. Honorable Speaker, I had the privilege on Friday to drive all the way from Suna West, all the way to Ndiwa, through Karachonyo, all the way to Kisumu City. And everywhere you would see, the only thing you would see, you will see the signboard for CDF projects. CDF projects. Until at one time, as around Katito, I stopped and asked the locals, does it mean in this part of the world, which looks like the western part where I come from, there are no county governments? Or the only county government you could see were the barriers along the road to collect cess and illegal levies. They told us that county governments, we only see them hovering around with sirens and carrying special chairs to go with them, to sit with them in funerals. Once they are done, they carry those chairs, they go away loading the pickup, go away zoom to the next function. But the impact of county government funds, equitable funds, even their own source revenue, is nowhere to be seen. That's why I call upon Kenyans of goodwill, wherever you are, you must fight tooth and nail with your blood and water to make sure CDF is never touched at any given time. Because 99%, when your child has got no school fees, who comes to the rescue? Is the CDF bursary. Anytime when the wind blows off a roof to a classroom, where do you run the first point of call? You run to CDF to assist you. When you have even very mundane issues, you run to where do you, even when toilets, when public health officers come and condemn the toilet, where do you run to? You run to CDF. So it is incumbent upon all Kenyans, wherever we are, that at every given time, we must always train our eyes to how the CDF money is used. It's not the MP's money, it is the people's money. So wherever you are, if you walk anywhere and you find anybody talking ill of CDF, even contemplating or imagining that they can abolish CDF, they are abolishing you completely and the entire lineage of your family. We wish that there could be a bit of collaboration between the CDF and the county government. We could have done much, much more than what we are doing. But, Honorable Speaker, whatever too small administrative clerical mistakes they are, we urge the Kenyans, we urge the Auditor General to just treat them as they are. They're of no material impact. So therefore, and I also ask the fund managers to consistently ensure that we comply with the law at any given time. So that at any given, the speaker is still busy. So that at any given time, Honorable Speaker, we can get value for money. So, Honorable Speaker, as we stand here today, we want to urge the National Board, the CDF Board. The financial year is coming to an end. We have so many CBC classrooms that are stuck. They are not moving because the disbursement has not come. We want them to hasten the disbursement of the funds so that we can put into rapid response measures to ensure these classrooms are completed so that our boys and girls do not have to sit outside as they run, as they do their things. Remember, Honorable Speaker, in 2020-26, the current GSS grade 8 after grade 9, they transit to secondary school. And the pathways will require massive investment in terms of art studio, performing studio, science laboratories, and the rest. We must start planning in advance to ensure that we are ready. The only responsive fund that can plan is the CDF. We want to urge all those who have got any infrastructure funds for schools or whichever, channel them through CDF. It will offer better services than giving to technocrats who do not understand the local circumstances. With those very many remarks, Honorable
Speaker. Just a minute, Honorable Oundo. What is out of order, the Honorable TJ Kajon?
How can it be out of yes, CG?
You know, Mr. Speaker, this good professor will never be out of order, but sometimes he forgets that he's speaking to the nation. Mr. Speaker, I didn't want to interrupt my friend, although I saw that he has fairly prosecuted this matter properly. But Mr. Speaker, looking at the House, I would have really wanted members from Vihiga to be here, because although we are speaking about the topic really is about the